Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you might be. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Chris Hewer, Managing Director of the TeamFlow Institute, and joined today by Jamie Schwartz, my co-founder and also a director of magnificent brand therapy, among other things. But we're here today to actually talk more about TeamFlow and particularly about how to actually start making TeamFlow a part of your collaborative experience. And particularly today's topic is the role of leadership in fostering TeamFlow. This is the third in our workshop series. We've actually had, and we've got one more coming up after this next Monday, and essentially covering the basics of TeamFlow and more importantly, its practical applications for how do we apply the proven principles of TeamFlow to remote work and hybrid teams. So we're also going to be hosting office hours, which we've had a few of on Thursday mornings at 8 a.m. And really trying to talk to team leaders, managers, and anyone really interested in enhancing team performance and collaboration. So we'll talk a little bit more about what all this stuff is. And today's goal is really to give you a couple of places where you might be able to start implementing this with your team. Well, who is the TeamFlow Institute? Well, it's kind of an interesting sort of thing. I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and there's a central premise to this, which is that we don't consider ourselves masters, we consider ourselves pursuing mastery. So that's one of the reasons why we position ourselves really as a research institute first, to ask better questions, to develop better answers. But we're also an academy for education, sharing what it is that we're learning and learning from each other, a lab to experiment so we can actually prove what works in which situations. And we're also a community for practicing augmented collaboration. How do we actually use AI with the human in the loop via the role of the TeamFlow facilitator to actually improve how we collaborate, give us more time back, and help us improve our ability to make progress? Or as we also like to say, how we can unlock maximum momentum using TeamFlow. And over the long term, as this kind of shakes itself out and we learn and we build our body of knowledge together and we bring in great people like Jeff Vandenhout, who is a principal researcher on the topic of TeamFlow over the last decade, we're going to be expanding to be a professional services guild of strategists, change agents, and TeamFlow facilitators / project managers / project coaches / make things run on time, helping to facilitate the conditions of TeamFlow to really help individuals on teams experience well-being a lot more than they perhaps have today, find that like life-work harmony. Yes, that's not work-life balance, it is life-work harmony, because life comes first and we need to work into that, the part of our work. And how to, really just make our lives a lot easier and simpler and let us get more done in a way that makes sense. As I mentioned, we've had two workshops so far, or two presentations so far. The first one on the power of TeamFlow, exposing the benefits of it. The second one, which we did last week, or 2 weeks ago, sorry, was creating the conditions for TeamFlow. Very exhaustive, but not so deep review of kind of what are the conditions in which an organization or a team can actually enable the members of the team to experience flow and to achieve really that peak performance. So at this point, I probably should just explain what flow is for those of you who don't know much about it yet. And that's the wrong one, that's the right one. So this book came out some time ago now, and you've probably heard about the idea of being in flow or achieving a state of flow. Mihaly actually looks at this as being completely involved in an activity, leading to a sense of ecstasy, clarity, and really higher performance because we're so in the zone, is another way people talk about this. And it is an optimal experience. But when we get it into the context of a team, it becomes a shared experience, leading to heightened collaboration. And in fact, when Jamie and I were working together over the past year and a half, during our meetings, what actually happened was that we recognized that by using AI services like Otter and Fireflies and some of the other ones that were transcribing our conversations and meetings, it allowed us to stay in flow with one another so that we didn't have to take all the notes, that we didn't have to remember what we just said 2 minutes ago because we could scroll back and do it. And that's where we actually landed on the concept of TeamFlow, independently of this research that we later discovered from Jeff Vandenhout, which does a much better job of explaining it. It is that state of intense focus, optimal experience, but it's an aspiration that if we are trying to achieve a state of TeamFlow together, we have at least this kind of sense of what it should feel like. What should good collaboration feel like? And this is very similar to some of the work that I did after leaving Deloitte with the software that I built called Aligned, which was really about trying to create this alignment between the team. Of course, that's a part of this. But what Jeff discovered that was really so powerful, and so much powerful than just using that language, are we on the same page, are we aligned, is this concept of collective ambition. That we actually all have a similar internal drive and ambition to get something done. And that tapping into that internal drive is what makes this, I think, so powerful. And of course, we have the cornerstones of it, that we do have our aligned personal goals, that we have some sense of safety, that we're able to talk with each other, able to ask questions, able to bring up new ideas, we're not afraid to do those things. And then really in this other corner, this high skill integration, it's not only high skill integration, it's also about the blending of egos. And how are we able to enable people who are really brilliant and have strong egos that has shown in their work over time that led them to get to the position? How do we get all those people with all those egos working well together? And so it seems like quite a task, but Jeff Van den Hout has discovered a bunch of principles, and of course, we know quite a few more. And when Jeff finished his research, the last question he had that he's now working on, and hopefully we'll be doing some work with him together, is understanding how to facilitate team flow within different job positions, in different industries, in different contexts. So when we're talking about building a map for what are the best ways to collaborate, what are the right protocols for decision making for this given situation, that is the extension of the research that Jeff has already done on team flow. It's really exciting. Oof. I'm gonna go ahead and do this one intro here, and then I'll pause for a second to see if you have any questions. So the role of the leader, I looked at the Sisyphean stuff with leaders rolling the ball uphill or the mountain or the boulder or whatever it is, and there's a bunch of great stuff, and it feels like that sometimes. But the reality is, it is about building a machine that builds the bridges from where you are today to where you could be tomorrow. If it's just getting across that gap, that's great. If it's about a certain amount of growth, whatever those objectives are, we would like to think that more people understand we're living maybe not only in the knowledge economy, but potentially the wisdom economy. So the role of leader is everything in facilitating team flow, from actually modeling the right behaviors to being able to express gratitude, to bring about more recognition to people who accomplish things on the team, whether large or small. And how do we build that cohesiveness around the team? There's a big burden on leaders to be able to make this happen. Now, that said, we can also lead without authority. We don't need to be the leader in order to we don't need to be the titular leader in order to lead. And in fact, one of the great books that I've read this past couple of years is one called Leading Without Authority, from Keith Ferrazzi, which talks about the concept of co-elevation. Now, it turns out this co-elevation thing is something I've had my whole life, where I see that if you're better off, I'm better off. So I'm willing to do things a little bit more for others because I know it comes back to me, not only in the form of karma, but in the form of the entire society and community and industry and teams and organizations and groups that I'm a part of becoming better off when the members of that group or team are doing better as well. So that's just kind of a core externalization that I have, and I see consistently that the leaders who have that sort of perspective are the ones that really have high performing teams. So while we are looking to the people who have authoritative power from the institution and the organization, there's definitely a room here for change agents to be the leaders of this movement, because it doesn't have to be an all or nothing heavy lift of a big human transformation equivalent to the digital transformation. There's a lot of small ways we can get started, and we'll be sharing some of those with you as we go forward.
Hey, Chris.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question?
Please, please.
So would you characterize, I guess, the co-leadership,
co-elevation?
Co-elevation. It sounds very similar to basically servant leadership.
It is. It's in that same sort of spirit, for sure. But it's an interesting thing because it it's not necessarily only about the leaders, right? It's really about the participants. And
Okay.
there's an interesting component to it, which is somewhat paradoxical and will occasionally prevent it from happening, because people aren't automatically thinking that way. It requires them to have that experience, right? And in
Right.
fact, in Keith's book, one of the main storylines that he explains and how this comes to be is that somebody's work, and actually I could talk about our web team that we were previously on, right? We have our web team, and that's our group that we meet with every week, and we build stuff and we get stuff done and we interact with other teams and we submit change requests to IT and all this. So it's a big cross-functional sort of situation, as a lot of teams are, particularly in product management and marketing. So while our team is the 8 of us who see each other and sit next to each other, the real larger team includes Mary over in finance and this person over in here and this team over here. So they actually shows how a person who was unable to get the support that they needed from one team was able to go out and build what he calls a relationship action plan to actually go and discover what is it that's preventing this person over here from fully supporting what it is we're doing. Is it a lack of understanding? Is it that they're too busy? What's going on? And to actually have empathy and concern, but to build a plan for how to strengthen that relationship, to make them feel like more part of the team. And you do that by doing things for them that will help them accomplish their goals. And it's a little more detailed than that, but that's kind of leading in, and there's probably about 12 or 15 stories similar to that of how that happened and how that act of kindness, that sort of pay it forward sort of thing, restructured the entire relationship between those external team members and the real core team. But it's a really fascinating thing. But once you have that experience, you can start kind of modeling it. So yes, and that's where the book name is Leading Without Authority, because you can do that as a leader, or you can just do that. And
If I could add a little.
Please go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
Mark, were you going to say something?
I was just acknowledging what he was saying.
So I would. It's a lot of reframing. It's kind of, instead of servant leadership, it's service. So the job of the executive is to set the mission, and the job of the team is to fulfill the mission. But once the mission is set, what does the leadership do? They sit in support of the team, but everybody is in service of co-elevating, because we're all in service of the mission. So this is where brand therapy comes into this, is making sure that that mission and the values and the vision are loud enough and strong enough that everybody is working towards that one singular goal. There is a set in a perspective inside executives to want to make sure that everything is happening with the way they said, and for teams to want their autonomy. Hey, you've hired me, trust me to do the work, and fighting for that autonomy. And managers sitting there going, can't we just have the peace between the two, and working towards negotiating with the two of them over the two different things that they want. But if everybody's in service of the mission, then we're all there to support each other in terms of that mission. It's that St. Oxbury quote, which I'm going to bastardize, which is, if you want to teach people how to build a boat, don't show them hammer and nails, teach them the wonders of the sea. Imagine the kind of boat you get when you say, build a boat, here's money, go do it, versus everybody who's in love with the adventure of the ocean and what kind of boat that would build. With everything else being equal, what comes out the other end when everyone's in support of each other, because they have the incentive of service of a larger mission, not any one person. So every single one person is, hey, I'm doing my part. Are you doing your part? We all believe in this thing. How can I help you so we can all get there together?
Makes sense.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. Really important. Yeah, and further to that, the other bit that leaders are doing is try to remove the obstacles, right? Remove the confusion and help create a clearer path, and then hopefully lead the way. But ultimately, it's not necessarily, again, the titular leader. It can be just the leader on the team. But the idea here is, how do we actually create the environment and the culture that fosters team flow? And really some very simple stuff here to start with. We need a culture of trust. There's a lot more to this stuff, but we really find that modeling vulnerability and authenticity is the beginning of it. Showing up with humility, showing up with empathy and compassion, and showing up with a bit of certainty as to which we're going when there is certainty, and a willingness to explore when there isn't. But secondarily, and one that a lot of people don't like to take on, is resolving conflicts quickly. We've discovered through my work with Rally Bright, or I've discovered through my work with Rally Bright, that very small misunderstandings can carry over many years and cause a lack of efficiency and effectiveness within the team's ability to get things done. In fact, it could be 25% tax even out of the overall labor on a given team if there is a brewing conflict that has not been resolved properly. So finding a way to better identify those, to get language that is easily accessible to all the team members for how we frame it, and to be able to bring those people together to get through the conflict. And as Jamie was saying before, to shift that focus back on what is our collective win, and what is it that we're actually all here in service of. These are small ways in which we can actually do that. The other way, of course, as we move further, is to actually share leadership responsibilities, to actually give people the opportunity to experience a particular role in which they are, the person in charge of getting things done, of coordinating, of orchestrating. And of course, one of the things that we're looking at is the role of the Team Flow facilitator, to be the person who takes on a lot of those shared leadership responsibilities for facilitating the collaborative conversations that they're having with one another in order to make better progress towards their objectives and goals. And then, of course, inside all of this is to promote psychological safety, to actually make it so that people can speak up, they can ask questions, that they can share their ideas, and feel that doing so is free of coercion and free of reprisal, which we all unfortunately may have seen a few workspaces that are the negative of that. And of course, we need to foster open communications. This is where we really need to lean more on encouraging and rewarding working out loud in digital workspaces instead of private communications channels. What can we do in public boards and in dashboards? We also, of course, want to shift to coaching. The coaching analogy really is perfect. We just don't apply it enough to our performance in knowledge work and what we're now looking at as human work. But of course, coaching is human work. So it's a really important component as we go forward, and as this new economy emerges with the amount of automation and artificial intelligence that we're going to be experiencing, that's going to disrupt a bit of the employment, but it's also creating an opportunity for upskilling and reskilling. And that's another part that we hope to play in the broader story going forward over the next decade, is to help upskill project managers to have team flow facilitation skills that meet the needs of this new remote, hybrid, working from anywhere sort of era, in a world where the focus is on human work, more so than the repetitive tasks. And how does that change everything for those of us who have grown up in it? And how does that present an opportunity for learning to those new entrants into the workplace who don't have those sorts of experiences to lean on? Beyond that, cultivating real relationships. I've looked at real relationships from this perspective for some time. Are they reciprocal? Is it empathetic? Is it authentic? Am I who I say I am in it? And is it long lasting? Is it about that longer loyalty to it? The other element for leaders to do, if they're not doing enough of it, is how to provide regular feedback. Of course, constructive feedback is really more welcome. And how do we recreate those safe spaces for that radical candor? How do we do that one-on-one in such a way that somebody can tell me what their real problems are and that we can really address them honestly, intentionally together? And then one of the other things that Jamie and I really landed on, which was our backgrounds brought these two things together, is the importance of gratitude protocols and recognition, and how we actually deploy that, not only at the conclusion of big projects and big milestones, but in the process of it, in the daily, in the weekly, and to be able to have people be recognized and seen for the contributions that they've made, for the advancements in skill that they make, and for what they show up with, instead of for what they don't. And it really, really powerful for us to understand, we believe, that with remote and hybrid, that gratitude and recognition are the accelerants of team flow. It is that part that helps to recreate or create the energy that bonds teams better together, that allows them to achieve that state of flow because they have that trust, because they have clarity on their mutual ambition, because they have the alignment of their goals, and because they've figured out how to blend their egos and their skills to be a superior team. And of course, we can look to sports and performing arts and so many other places where we see this kind of show up. And of course, that's where a lot of the team flow and the group flow research has been over the years. And so it's only recently shifted into really looking at knowledge work and human work. But we believe very deeply that that's the simple place for you to start, is just to bring more recognition and more gratitude to your interactions with your teammates.
Not just the recognition, but the habitation of it, the habituation of it, so that these are not just, wow, what a big thing. I want to make sure everybody knows that this needs to be thanked. But this little thing that Chris just did, Chris, thank you for clarifying this so much. And me doing that and allowing not only that I thanked him, but what I thanked him for, and for that to become a token in and of itself that is part of measuring flow and providing a proof of productivity, as opposed to when you have an oversight kind of management where you don't trust and you have to prove hours and buttons being clicked. You have web cameras and mouse tracking, which not only breaks trust and is kind of the opposite of the environment you want to create, but it also gets in the way of somebody's work, versus gratitude and recognition and praise when tokenized and becoming just a part of the flow of everything. It is intrinsically something that elevates out of it and is provided as just an output of flow. And I know we're giving some of this away because there's more in the deck to get to with that. But we kind of want to make sure that we're covering just the basics here. But the further you go, every single part of this is foundational and has to integrate with everything else in service of the larger thing, with team flow being the very thing on top. And I can see Josh's hand.
Hey, Josh, go ahead.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Sorry I'm late. I got here about 10 minutes ago, but I just want to bounce off of what Jamie just said. With today, I was reading an article about how Facebook sent out a memo to their managers that they are going to be sending them their door code registrations, and they want them to fire anyone who doesn't maintain the 3-day-a-week policy, suggesting that it's entirely arbitrary when they want people to show up. And, you know, going about this again the complete wrong way. It seems to me that if you value this time so much, the directive should be for managers to have in-person activities that require their workers' presence 3 days a week, as opposed to put them on policing their time in such a way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I got more to talk about that in a bit. And your choice of words there is perfect, I believe, because it's just arbitrary. And what I like to explain around this is that, you know, as a kid, I was a curious, pestering little question machine. And, you know, it got to the point where questioning everything all the time, where the answer I would sometimes get back, not because they didn't love me, but because they got tired. When I asked the question, the answer back was because. Now that was more about like, why can't I stay up till 10 o'clock or what, you know, that sort of stuff that kids want to do. But the reality is that is essentially the answer that Facebook gave to their people. Why do you have to come back at this time for these number of days and this sort of stuff? Because. And that's not a good enough answer, because we're adults and we should be able to have a real conversation around this. And I've got much more to add to that later, but you're spot on, Josh. And that just creates the wrong message. And anyways, there's a lot more to talk about with some of those companies that we know, but let's go ahead and just move forward here and get through this. And then I can share some deeper thoughts on that, if you don't mind, in a little bit. You know, where we want to move into next as a sort of concept is how we align the team to the shared purpose. And it is really not only about creating that inspiring vision and mission that taps into our mutual ambitions, but it's about sustaining the story, the narrative of our mission and vision on an ongoing basis. In fact, to this point, I'm going to turn to some Tony Robbins stuff I learned a long time ago, which was actually this thing they called the rapid planning method, but it was originally called OPA. It was outcome, purpose, and activities, or actions, one of those two. But it was all about focusing, what are the outcomes that I need to do? And then before getting into the activities of defining, building my getting things done or whatever sort of list, it was about associating the purpose with that objective or outcome so that we actually closely tie it together. And I was just reminded of this story the other day in a conversation with somebody. We were talking about how somebody at NASA, a janitor actually, was being interviewed and going around, and somebody came up to him and says, okay, what do you do here at NASA? And he goes, I help to bring people to the moon. It wasn't about the cleaning the floor, the building, the job itself. He was connected to that higher purpose, and therefore he had more personal joy and satisfaction out of that work, and he did a damn well better job as a result. Because it wasn't about just cleaning out toilets and the rest of it. It was about his role in the broader mission and vision, and he was connected to that on a regular basis. The other thing, of course, with that idea of working backwards perhaps from the vision, is how do we ladder up our goals and objectives to achieve it, and that we can make that clear how it fits together. The other thing that we're talking about is tracking progress on a shared dashboard, not productivity. There's a little bit more to talk about in the nuance of that. It turns out that productivity is really an industrial capitalism era metric that we've been really wrongly applying to much of our knowledge work for the last couple of decades. And not always, sometimes it's done properly, but generally speaking, we aren't machines, we aren't cogs, unless we're actually following a specific pattern that has been designed for us to work on an assembly line to be the most efficient thing, where it has all been figured out for us. And that's the thing about assembly lines and the industrialization, the industrial era, is that all of that stuff of productivity was figured out for you, and all you had to do was follow it. I do believe in part that's why our educational system is designed around rote memorization and compliance instead of creativity. Because if you have creative spirits like we've seen over the years, getting stuck in those rote jobs with the routine and everything else, they eventually go nuts, they quit, or they throw up some other problems into it, and it doesn't make the machine work. It's essentially like having a rogue part in a machine. But this new economy based on human work that's emerging now, where that repetitive rote task will be done by machines and robots, well, we've got to kind of rejigger everything now as a result of that. Our education system, our job training systems, and so much more. And we hope the TeamFlow Institute can play a part in all of that stuff. And again, as we've discussed elsewhere, it's not just bringing that vision back, but to continuously realign and check in with each other. One of the other elements of productivity that I've seen recently in some of the articles was this great insight that in the past, we'd asked, what have you been doing, or what have you done, and trying to look backwards. Well, the new kind of dialogue isn't about that. It's how are you doing, which is actually looking forward to understand what's going on now and what's going on next, to see where we can help on making the progress, instead of looking back at what's already happened and try to do a dialogue around that. Let's see here. And we already did that. Keep vision alive. Okay, back to co-elevation and an abundance mindset. And talk about this just a little bit more, since we did already get into it. But it really is, we believe, not just this kind of idea that if you're better off, I'm better off. It's about actually understanding that we're in a world of abundance, where we can make mutual gains, and that, as my wonderful equality, equal rights shirt says, let me get the quote right. Equal rights is, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forget. I just wore the t-shirt the other day. But in essence, it's that equal rights don't mean less rights for you. It's not pie, right? Equal rights for others doesn't mean less rights for you. It's not pie. And very much the same thing here. This is something where we can have mutual gains and growth, where we can actually get rid of that zero-sum approach. And the way that we're trying to construct it is really looking at not only a win-win, but a win-win-win. We're working on right now a launch of a Labor Day campaign around ending the adversarial relationship between labor and owners that have the managers sitting in the middle as either peacekeepers or enforcers, trying to maintain the balance, trying to tell those people at Facebook that they have to come back 3 days a week. And if I don't see you doing it, I'm going to drop the hammer and you're going to lose your job. As opposed to finding out what role that individual plays, helping them to become better at it, and figuring out how should we be working with them as the team in order to get what we need for the team and the organization accomplished in the best way possible with the highest quality and impact. So it really is about this idea of forming those trusted partnerships with each other, and how can we inspire the best work from all of our team members instead of demand and coerce it. We just don't get the same response or same quality back when it's under demands, and when it's under that sort of rote, sort of arbitrary decision-making and policy structure. So let's pause there for a minute before we go further into this stuff, because we're talking now about some of the creating the conditions, and I'll talk a little bit more about how the culture plan kind of fits into this, but any questions or thoughts you'd like to add on this section?
Yeah, Chris, I just asked it as a question in the chat, but based on what you were just saying, would you be inclined to agree that synergy is sort of the guiding principle around sort of the outcome or the goal setting of Team Flow Institute?
Well, I guess it depends on the context. A lot of people hate that word. I don't hate that word. It describes something. It describes an integration of various energies that is a catalytic sort of conversion process to create something better. There's a lot of synergy inside of this stuff, and because we're sitting at the intersection of multiple disciplines and at this crossroads in history, the idea there is that it is actually probably more the synthesis, I would say, that I'm looking for, to be able to distill all these different insights together in a way that makes it more practical and accessible to more people. The central tenet goes back to something I wrote coming out of a Vision Quest in 2000, which was about the fact that we really do have almost all the knowledge we need to get most everyday things done. Maybe not on particle accelerators and building black holes, but on a lot of other things, we've kind of got it figured out. It's just not everyone knows how to do it because the knowledge hasn't been distributed, much like Stevenson's future about the fact that the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. But what could happen if we could get all those knowledge and all that insights out of people's drawers, out of people's clouds, and make it more accessible and, more importantly, adaptable to a given situation that someone was facing? And so, the long-term sort of, I guess, synergy I'm looking for is between all of the people coming together and being able to co-create that in service of our own needs to make it easier for us, and in that process, making it abundantly easier for many more people.
But
I would agree that just to answer your question, Josh, I think that synergy is a great word and a part of this, but the reason we use alignment is, well, synergy is kind of alignment in action, but it's just not specific enough of a term. That there's lots of different kinds of synergies, and the specific kind of output of alignment that we're looking for here is team flow, because it's in service of the work. There is so much synergy that can happen in a team that doesn't lead to team flow, and this is a specific kind of alignment and synergy that has to lead to team flow. So it is the purpose behind it that I just wanted to add to.
Thank you for understanding the question and answering better, Jamie. Thank you.
I mean, I appreciate that additional context, but just to get to the point that I'm trying to make, and perhaps I'm wrong and there's a better word than synergy, but my understanding of the definition of the word synergy is that when you have two beings doing work and you put them together, the output, if they're both in that alignment, is greater than the sum of their two outputs separately. in the perfect example being a crew team, and how if they are all rowing as one unified system as they do through, devout practice, the actual amount of energy put forward is greater than the sum of each of them rowing individually. And by offering this as the greatest selling point of Team Flow Institute, you're leveraging the biggest selling point for a corporation by its definition, which is improving the bottom line by decreasing the wasted energy and maximizing flow.
So I would point you to the word that Chris came up with that aligns with Team Flow, which is maximum momentum, which is on the first page of the deck. There's certain synergies that don't lead to maximum momentum and some that do. It's once again the specificity and the use case of the term. So regardless of this being a semantics argument or not, because words matter, the point of the synergy is to lead to maximum momentum, because I can have synergy with Chris and I experience synergy every time we have a meeting, which is wonderful, but we also get lost in our progress that we're making. So synergy could just be that we are aligned in our thinking, but it's the output of what comes out of it that is more than synergy, and also because of a specific kind of synergy. So once again, it's a great word, and it just has a place that requires context to be used. That's really good.
Yeah, I agree. And yes, Josh, thank you for carrying that definition and hearing you say that, I would agree more with it. And then still, it's the thing, it's the synergy between which people are showing up together. And in fact, that's a part of our cultural plan, as we'll look at here shortly. But it's more specific to that context of the people, and the explicit language that Vandenhout landed on was the blending of egos and the high integration of skills. And that synergy on those two levels of being able to make those two things happen is what then turns into that collective ambition and the driving force that brings people to want to collaborate together in such a way for that shared purpose. And so in that sense, it's absolutely the synergy of those elements.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Jamie. I mean, I think that it's less a semantics conversation than like a lexiconal understanding, and we may be using or relate to these words differently.
Yep.
And beyond that, a question of branding, because it comes down to like, what is the core understanding of these language and how they impact people in the core audience set.
Well, it's not wrong. And so the question becomes, again, back to one of my core framings, is like, in which situations is that the term of art, right? And I think you're absolutely right that there's a lot of people in business who talk about that and who are looking for that, and they're geared on it. And, when I was in all the meetings at Deloitte, and it was cross-industry with government, non-government, big corps, nonprofits, everything else, the word that kept coming out of every meeting was alignment. And that's where I kind of ended up being biased towards that and not seeing past it, because I was trying to serve and sell into that. But you're right, it's not just a semantic discussion, it's an important one, because it's trying to embody the greater truth that is inherent in these processes and these outcomes that arise from them. And, I think it's something that we'll end up now having to test a little bit more and seeing where that rises and where people use that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I really bring it up because we have our planned talk tomorrow, and
yes,
these things are resonant.
Appreciate that. And that's what we need, more perspective so that we can consider it all together. Well, let me move into the bulk of this as we're starting to run out of time and get to one of the things that I hope is part of our kind of secret sauce. And this isn't something totally original, but one of the things that we hit on in the last couple of years, in particular with a bunch of people in masterminds that I've been a part of, was the idea that most organizations thought they had some kind of strategic plan. They have an operational plan of some sense, even if it's only run out of the CFO and the controller's office or the bookkeeper, whoever that might be. But very few, if any, have a cultural plan that actually bonds those together and talks about how we actually bring it to life. And so that's kind of what we mean when we're looking at that cultural plan and what it becomes. And as we looked at it more deeply, we found ourselves turning to Simon Sinek's work, Start with Why, and his golden circle of starting with why and figuring out how and then figuring out what. Now, I don't know necessarily for what we're doing if that's in the right order. That's one of the things we'll be testing. But we've gone really beyond that because there's more questions to ask and answer when we're building the cultural plan that determines how we activate strategy and how we operationalize the activities that create that strategy or bring it to life. And that's where we've kind of gone fully out, and we'll walk through this a little bit, but it's pretty obvious here. You know, the why becomes our mission, vision, values, our shared purpose that we're actually aligning around. And in fact, as we start looking at this with human work, as Jamie will tell you often, because he's right on with this stuff, we probably should be looking now at hiring for fit to purpose more than fit to skill/role. Because a lot of those skills can actually be learned, but to actually understand the inside baseball language of an industry problem opportunity space, having a personal connection and understanding with it is probably much better off than just knowing how to do SEO, for instance, because it allows me to interpret the language and do more with it. The how gets into our protocols, workflows, and tools, literally a map of collaboration that can actually be part of what is called a position agreement that defines my role in the overall collaborative process with the team and with other teams in a very clear manner so that everyone has certainty and understanding about what the core responsibilities are and can build from that. Of course, when we move into the what, we're talking about the strategies, objectives. I really like leaning on OKRs as one method for getting to that. Further in, when we start talking about who, we're looking at the work agreements and relationships we have and those maps in the position agreement with greater detail specifying the different teams and individuals that I'm working with. And again, coming back to that relationship action plan, maybe a reason why you have to work with somebody outside your core team and what you do to develop those relationships to be able to show your alignment on that common purpose and mission. And then we get into really the stuff that was just being talked about earlier with regards to our return to office. And this is like an aha literally in the past week and a half or so, not that we hadn't considered it before, but within this context. Zoom actually had also done a return to office mandate. It wasn't for everyone, and it was mischaracterized in the news, to be fair to them. But it essentially said everyone within 50 miles of the office, the headquarters office out in Silicon Valley, needs to return to the office a certain number of days a week. So I guess similar probably to what Facebook did, and Facebook may have even followed them. But saying that is just because. It's not a real reason. Wasn't it better for us to actually understand where is the best place to do this work? When is the best time for us to get together to do this work? And then how do we take into consideration the individual contributions of the team member that has slightly different needs than the ability to, be on a call at midnight, our local time? And of course, we figured this all out through consulting. We figured this all out over the past couple of decades in how to work a global organization with talent in distributed cities around the world. So we have a lot of this stuff figured out. We just haven't brought it into this context all the way. And not only is it about somewhere or anywhere, where is the best place for us to accomplish this work? It's also, should we do it live or can we do it at different times around the clock? And how do we look at the integration of synchronous and asynchronous collaboration techniques? So when we're talking about building the map goes through the culture plan that organizations can deploy at that level if you're looking for a full organizational transformation. But again, all of these things, to Josh, your point earlier about the manager having to enforce that or figure out where do they need to be and when should they be here and should they be coming in because I have a team activity assigned? Absolutely. That's exactly how it should be done because we bring mindfulness and intentionality to the design of our collaboration to produce the best results with the team we have. And if we don't have the right team, then we need to ask about how do we improve our team intelligence or how do we get the tools and other technologies that we need to be the best team? So some simple steps to start, be vulnerable, model openness and authenticity, express gratitude more frequently, but sincerely. It can't just become a forced exercise. We need to assess the state of the team dynamics to understand what issues might be there that are preventing them and what are lifting them. We need to also split out human work and tasks. What is the stuff that an AI or robot could be doing better because of the repetitive nature of the task and the quality or the value of the talent assigned to do it? How do we actually figure out which of these automation and AI tools are going to be most effective for us? Well, we've got to experiment with them. I'm on, I think, my 18th transcript software now, trying out all the different transcript stuff. So that's not something you necessarily want to do or you should do, but it's certainly something that we can share with you what we've learned so that you don't have to go through all of that again and can go ahead and just start by inviting an Otter or a Firefly or another one of these AIs into your meetings and start figuring out how to work with that a little bit better. Because I can tell you it really has unleashed a lot of our quality work that I never would have been able to capture otherwise or be able to remember. We also need to actually intentionally connect team members. It can't just be on the 5 minutes at the front end of every meeting. We need to have some special time dedicated to being able to connect personally, socially, and start building that sense of trust with one another. Again, as I mentioned before, asking how are you doing instead of what did you do is a really strong way as well. And then more importantly, I think out of all this stuff is show your investment in your people by establishing the opportunities for them to get to more training, like what we're going to be doing in the fall with our TeamFlow Facilitator workshop and course, and other courses that they might be able to sign up for and take online. Investing in the development of your team is the most cost-efficient way of improving your effectiveness of what you're trying to accomplish as an individual and leader. And of course, establishing the strong foundation, a lot more to talk about with Vanden Hout's Team Flow model and how all this comes together, but not time here today to get into that in too much depth. Instead, what I'd like to do is I'd ask you to join us in our Discord community. It's a free community membership available on teamflow.institute. There is a professional membership that we're selling. We're not pushing that right now, but if you're interested in taking the course in the fall, the members, the charter members in particular, who are part of the Institute now, will have free access to the course that we're going to be charging somewhere around $750 or $1,000 for the fall. It's a multi-week course with a couple of check-ins, real seminars and educational content that's not going to be available elsewhere. And that's kind of the big push for our fall. And I'll have more about that coming up here right at Labor Day when we're making our Labor Day campaign announcement. And then really more importantly is to start recognizing when you're in flow and potentially when you're in flow collaborating with others so you can go, this is what it feels like, and start paying attention to the sort of progress that you make when you're in that state and the quality of the insights that you actually produce. So I want to thank you very much for showing up today and listening to us and sharing some of your thoughts, and open it up here for some final questions in the closing minutes. And we're happy to go over a few minutes if you'd like to stay or end right at the top of the hour as you need. But thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Chris and Jamie for doing this presentation. And it's actually really reaffirming for me seeing that some of my thoughts and my processes and my approach to leadership. And I don't like to use the word management. I prefer the term leadership because it's I saw this meme probably about 6 or 7 years ago that said, and this really stuck with me, a manager will always remind you how important they are, whereas a leader reminds you how important you are. And that's kind of been like, if I could break it down to a single phrase, that's always been my approach to leadership. And it's really good to see that there is some synergy, to use your term, between how I've conducted my teams and seeing how you guys have kind of formalized and documented that whole thought process. So yeah, it's great, and it's in addition to just reaffirming, saying, hey, yeah, Mark, you're not totally clueless, even though half the time I think I am. It's also good to see that there's also other ideas that I can take away from this as well. So
awesome.
yeah,
Well, really glad to hear that. And that's part of the thing, man. The systems that are make us feel stupid inside of them when we're not. When it's reality, where it's a system that's been broken all along because it's trying to like apply one pattern from an assembly line to what we do as human work. And we're not cogs in the machine. And we are humans. We all have unique needs. And we're made to believe is that if you can't follow the compliant rules, that there's something wrong with us, and it's not. The reality is quite the opposite. And with this moment in time, if more people don't start embracing this and start recognizing people like you and others who actually know what the right things are to do but haven't been able to do them, we're going to be in for a shit ton of trouble over the next couple of years.
Yeah. And we do want to advance it beyond the well, to your point of the saying, I don't want the leader to think about how important I am. I want to think about how important you are. It's how important we are in service of the mission. So we're not cogs in the machine, but we are parts of a whole that is greater as a sum than our parts. And so that alignment, it's still going above another level there. It's grabbing for brand therapy again here. We can't get rid of egos, and we don't want to. We want all of this to be about understanding the truth of human nature. Once again, human, not robot. But there's an ego that's bigger. The brand can be the largest ego in the room so that everybody has something to be, through their own language, in service of, not subservience to, but in service of. So that mission, that voice of the mission is there for us to co-elevate towards. I know the mission gets realized better if I help my fellow coworker with what they need and they help me with what we need. It is that larger premise that goes beyond any one. It's not servant, it's servants.
I love you, man. That's fantastic. Thank you for closing on that together.
There's a lot of love in these meetings also, by the way. We want to make that as apparent as possible. There's a lot that comes from that trust and that building. And I hear you, Josh. Go for it.
So the news of the Facebook thing really sort of hit me in an interesting way. And the reason I was late is I got diving down a rabbit hole of imagining a movement focused on reclaiming people's ability to work wherever they are, however they are. And there's a song from, 2016 that's not about working from home, but thanks to ChatGPT, I now have lyrics to this that match the cause. And I think this might be a good way to end us out with everyone's permission.
Please. That's great, Josh. Thank you.
This is obviously going to give it no justice because I'm neither a soul singer nor a rapper, but here we go. Wake today, alarms keep blinging. Boss on call. Return, correct? Threads I rock in this game, I'm kinging. Why bounce back? Here I'm unchecked. Metrics high, no slide, I'm stacking. Remotes reign, ain't just a flash trend. Boss in denial says team's lacking. I say check the numbers again. Office noise that ceaseless clatter. Here I soar, only data matters. Wi-Fi bars, coffee shot. My grooves on, never distraught. You don't got to go to work, but you got to put in work. You don't got to go to work. Let me do my fucking work. We can work from home. Oh, we can work from home. Oh, ditch the street, no more pace race. Save my cash, embrace the space. Home's the scene where I'm prime. Clocking hours online, it's time. You don't got to go to work, but you got to put in work. You don't got to go to work. Let me do my fucking work. We can work from home. Oh, we can work from home. Oh.
That's awesome, Josh. Cool. And you do spoken word poetry. I know it. So that's pretty good.
But it doesn't do the original justice.
What's the original?
It's called Work From Home. It's a 2016 song, and the chorus totally made sense starting when the pandemic happened. Used it in a little bit of advertising, and yeah, now I feel like it's time to rewrite the verses to actually make it an anthem for a new movement.
Well, that's kind of the idea, going that up a notch. But and maybe that's the problem. That's when we talk tomorrow, Josh. We'll figure out more of this. But we look at it at the bigger picture level of the adversarial relationship between owners and labor, and can we actually shift that to being that abundance mindset and the win-win-win opportunity through the focus on serving the brand and the vision and the mission, which is where we can start making inroads, moving to this direction anywhere you are by adopting some of these protocols and principles and values and meeting tricks and some of the other stuff to make it work better. But ultimately, to really make team flow a regular occurrence and to benefit from business as possible, as good as it could be, enabling people to do their best work ever, we really have to start from the foundation up and look at how we rebuild that foundation. And again, keep coming back to the vision and mission and purpose as we're doing even some of the not so glamorous work inside of that operational plan that's required for us to be successful with our mission. So
Absolutely.
So definitely looking forward to figuring out more of that. And yes, there is another labor movement, and we need to be able to stand up for human work, and we need to be able to stand up for investing in human in the loop artificial intelligence design, because the investment decisions that are being made today on these assistive and augmented collaboration technologies is going to determine our future. And a lot of people don't see that right now because, of course, the massive gains available through generative AI, working with text and other sorts of tasks that it's really good at. We don't want to get rid of every job. We don't want to get rid of every person who's doing those jobs. We want to help those people transition, because this is an inevitability. And that requires upskilling and reskilling and a lot more compassion for understanding of what people are going to be going through over the next several years. And a lot more places like the Team Flow Institute, where people can come and learn and find these new opportunities and develop these new skills and find greater purpose and enrichment and fulfillment in their lives and in their work. And so,
yeah, and a business would never hire a parody artist, but it might make sense to write a parody when you can do so in 20 minutes on ChatGPT. But you
yes.
never invest in like contracting out someone when your office doesn't have the skill set to do it, nor wants to put in the time having a worker spend half a day writing that lyric.
Yep. Yep. A lot more opportunities to get in touch with our humanity. Is that Jamie? Did you have one last point?
Sorry, can you hear me?
No, you're frozen a little.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, now we can.
We fully believe this is holistic enough to answer the future of work, but because it's so holistic, there are so many parts to this. And so another part, preview of a whole different conversation, is the AI of all of this, not only in how it enables us to take artificial intelligence and make augmented intelligence for humans, but the fact that given this exact time of the ability to use AI to do this is also the exact time that people take AI and completely destroy any sense of humanity in a company. And it's, like I said, a completely, we need time for another topic to do this, but taking that into account, not only because it's the perfect time to use this, but it's also the perfect time to stop the inevitability of AI creating system collapse, food collapse, extraction of full humanity out of a company. So we either do this now, not because it's a great opportunity, which is an important thing to do, but also because if we don't do it now and business as usual is allowed to continue with AI, we're going, no matter what, there's a fork in the road happening. And that AI is either going to take over completely all human work and destroy the capabilities that humans bring to work, or we can realign to business as possible with a team flow mindset and then apply AI to it to actually achieve things that were unachievable before it. Right. We are still searching for the right language to make this work, but that's about as close as we're at right now.
Well, we'll get it in the next week because that's when we need it by. But thank you so very much, Mark. Really good to see you. Hey, Mike Calendly is just my name, so calendly.com/Chris Hewer.
Okay.
So please find an hour on it next week. It would be great to catch up, or 30 minutes, whatever you have.
Sure. Sounds good.
Awesome. Looking forward to talking to you more. For all of you
All
who
right.
have joined us remotely or virtually or are watching this whenever in time, thank you very much for spending the hour with us. Look forward to talking to you more. Join us at teamflow.institute. Have a great day, evening, morning, whatever else is in front of you.
Thank you.
Cheers.